Right. There are some strong speakers. Do they need the Okay. Well, everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome to our first meeting of the year. I think if we'd known earlier or thought about it, we would have delayed it a week, but we haven't. So we're here, so it should be a relatively short meeting because I've got a pantomime rehearsal tonight. Oh, no, you haven't. Oh, yes, I have. Right, now we've got in a good mood. Right, before I get into this, you will have noticed, and I must say some of you have dressed up a bit better, you know, for some live screening, which I think, can you see, I mean, this is a bit of a trial today. There will be there's microphones down each side, so that if you want to speak, we have, there we go, one, is there another one? I was told that, right, okay, and yes, it's radio mic, there's no cable, right, great. So please use the mic. I will correct you if you're not using the mic, as in, you know, don't have it down here, the microphone's for here.
Speak just below your chin.
Right, so this is a bit of a trial, see how it goes. It is going to be live streamed, so other councils do it, so all I can say is good luck and see what happens. Anyway, right, let's crack on. Apologies for absence. Karen. Any from the floor?
Councillor Margaret Richards.
Anybody else? Can't see anybody indicating. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. Now this is pages 9 to 34. For accuracy. Councillor Dungworth. Thank you. Microphone here, go.
On page 32, it's my question about streetlights, Councillor Sanderson. The bottom paragraph, it said that I said there were at least 5 lights out in my ward. I think I said there were at least 11 lights out in my ward, as I counted them. As it happens, there were 28 lights out in my ward, but for the record, it should be 11, not 5.
Thank you. Councillor Flux.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just on point 47 on page 11. Councillor Daly called on members to support Domestic Violence Awareness Week from the 20th to the 26th, and the DIVA Don't Ignore Violence and Abuse Walk. I just wanted to announce that I myself, Councillor Daly, Leslie Pyle, the Domestic Violence Coordinator, other officers and Pontefract Town Councillor Adam Shamley attended that. I am today wearing the white ribbon. I was given that event to publicise that service that was there, and I would say it's a very positive morning in highlighting a very important issue, and I thank all those who were involved in organising it.
Thank you. Councillor Grimshaw.
Yes, page 16. The question I raised on before I queried whether trade unions had been involved with the business chair advised response would be sent in writing, and that was to do with a pension meeting, and I still haven't received a response.
I can hand over to Councillor Watson, who has looked into this. Councillor Watson, wait for the microphone.
Yes, I can assure you, and all the members of the pensions panel, which include 2 union representatives, can confirm that the unions were involved all the way through and have absolutely no issues with it. Whilst I'm on my feet, Chair, if I may, on the same subject, on page 16, with reference to the 4th bullet point from Councillor Ledger. Councillor Ledger states that he wasn't informed, or it was a, says that original discussions have been around a shared service. I took this on board and asked our principal accountant of the pensions panel to give me a copy of what had happened with meetings. And actually, Councillor Ledger, you may have forgotten, but on the 16th of February 2017 at 4 p.m, you attended a meeting along with Grant Davey when and the office of the leader to discuss pooling and merger. This was followed up by another meeting on in March. So to say that it was not something that you were aware of is actually not strictly correct.
Okay. I'll take. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. I am still of the same opinion. I was dealing with a shared service. There was no talk of merger at that time, and it was not brought to me. And Grant himself, I certainly have no recollection whatsoever of that happening. It may well be, but I have no recollection of that happening, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. With all due respect, I haven't had
Mike.
access to why I didn't have a written response.
I have no idea. We'll look into that and try and help you with that. Councillor Grant Davey.
Speaking as a new councillor, Chair, the meeting referred to by Councillor Watson, right? The meeting referred to by Councillor Watson regarding pooling and merger has nothing to do with the South Tyneside and the moving of officers from South Tyneside to a shared service with that authority. The pooling of pension funds is about a much larger pool to use the funds of the pension fund by the government for infrastructure lending. The merger would be on a much larger scale of something called coast and country, and that's what that meeting is about. It wasn't about the local work, it was within the motion to try to retain some workers here in Northumberland to help the pensioners of Northumberland.
Okay. Anything else on the minutes? Right, let's move on. Disclosure of members' interests. Councillor Heppel.
I would like to declare an interest in item 10.1, as I am a beneficiary of the LGP Northumberland LGPS. Now, I need some advice as to whether I should leave the room during discussion or remain, much of it's a peculiar personal interest.
Chairman, I'm not sure I need the mic to respond, but I would advise that a declaration of a personal interest is sufficient in these circumstances, given the nature of the report.
That means we're going to get a few. I don't think I want the microphone to go around. Can you just... Councillor Dale first?
Yes, I'm a member, and I'm the third, and I came out of the actual about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago. But I know quite a lot of councillors who are still
Yeah,
members.
I know. Councillor Davey, Grant?
At the last meeting was given dispensation because so many hands went in.
I know.
Were involved in the pension fund to discuss matters surrounding the government pension fund and the rules that were referred to earlier. So I would suspect the same dispensation should actually
Liam?
Well, forgive me for not being able to readily recollect exactly what happened at the last meeting, but the power to grant dispensation relates only to the Standards Committee and myself as monitoring officer, and I cannot grant dispensations in relation to this category of interest. I think, for completeness sake, forgive me, Chairman, if those members who believe they have an interest in relation to this particular issue, if they could just indicate to Karen Hadfield and she could note that.
Right, show of hands. Show of hands, including me. Do you want to read them out?
Chairman, in retrospect, if members can just make Karen aware after the meeting, if that's okay.
I'm happy with that,
I
right?
didn't realise there were so many members.
Okay. Any other members' disclosures? Yes, Councillor Jackson?
Yes, Chair. I disclose a personal but not prejudicial interest as a Director of Arch in relation to item 14.
Councillor Wearmouth?
Chair, the same for myself.
Likewise, Chair.
Councillor Reid? Councillor Sharp?
Thank you, Chairman.
As well, just on that point.
Interest in the personnel presentation in the Cabinet minutes on Tuesday the 12th of December regarding the Lord House and Social Welfare Centre, as I am the chairman of that charity.
Yeah, Councillor
Chair,
Daly.
it's on again item 14. I am a director at Arch.
Right, now, through all that, can't see anybody else. Let's... Councillor Dickinson?
It's just a query, I'm sure it's already been answered for others, but I'm not aware of the answer. Given that every member is now a member of planning committee, I'm assuming that we can proceed with the items relating to changing planning terms and reference as we go along.
So, membership of committees of that nature don't constitute an interest that needs to be declared, Councillor Dickinson.
Now, can we move on? Right, I'm going to move on. Announcements. I have the New Year Honours Awards list. I'll read them out. OBE, Matthew Boyle, President and Chief Executive of Sevcon for services to engineering and skills, Morpeth. John Strowther Shallcross for voluntary services to young people and youth clubs in the North East, Morpeth. MBE, Mrs. Annie Ellen Barr, founder of Annie Barr Associates for services to exports and healthcare Prudhoe. David Richard Beveridge Byrne for services to the magistracy and community in Hexham. Jeffrey Allen Coates, social worker and member of Adoption Support Expert Advisory Group for services to children, Cramlington. Mrs. Julie Dixon for services to the community in Northumberland. Headley George Heron for services to charity and the community in Northumberland, that's Morpeth. Mrs. Shirley Kankowski, Project Manager HM Revenue and Customs for Services, Estate, Pension and Reform. And BEM, Frank Eric Bull for services to the Royal British Legion and the community in Whitby, Alnwick. And Mrs. Jean O'Hanlon, caseworker, Northumberland branch of SSAFA Armed Forces for voluntary service to ex-service personnel and to the community in Alnwick. So is it in order that I write to them all and thank them on their behalf? Or congratulate them? Thank you. The other notice announcement I have that it is remembrance of the Holocaust Day on the 25th of January. Here there will be more information on that event coming out. Correspondence. Grant, I've got you the Northern Farmer this time.
Chair, if I may comment on that. You need to spend some more money because the Farmers Weekly was a far better read than that.
Well, next time I'll get you the Farmer's Guardian because I know you're a Guardian reader. So, right, other correspondence. I think council leader's got a letter to read out.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. After the last meeting, the council requested me to write to the government in relation to the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is the main source of structural funding when we actually leave the European Union. I did get a letter back from the Chancellor, and I got an even more detailed letter back from the Minister for the Northern Powerhouse, Jake Berry. I'll just read an extract which will give the Council some confidence. The government is committed to the creation of a UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which will seek to improve the UK's productivity and reduce economic inequalities across all 4 nations of the Union. It affords a fresh opportunity to focus investment according to our own priorities, rather than those set by the European Union. We will aim to create a simpler fund which is easier to access for local areas. The government is actually committed to consulting quite widely on how they're going to implement this fund, and they have already met with the Industrial Communities Alliance, which is where the whole issue came from. I'm still determined to actually make sure that there is as much devolved powers as possible, because I don't believe, I think it's great that we're going to have the confidence that European funding will be replaced by this Shared Prosperity Fund, But I think we are the people in the northeast of England and in Northumberland in particular to decide where best to apply those funds. So I'm still going to push for further devolution of this particular fund before it's implemented. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Item 6. Questions. I'll take so many and see how long it takes, and I'll use my discretion on how quick they go, on whether they go to the back. So question 1 on the agenda from Councillor G. Hill to Councillor V. Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Does the current administration have any evidence to suggest that the prescription of methadone through drug recovery programmes in Northumberland is successfully treating drug addiction and improving lives? If so, what is it?
Councillor Hill, I hope you don't mind if I read the answer because it's a little technical for me. Methadone and buprenorphine are both prescribed as opioid substitute therapy. Their use is recommended by the National Institute of Health and Clinical Excellence and the Drug Misuse and Dependence UK Guidelines on Clinical Management as part of a wider treatment and recovery plan which includes psychosocial interventions and recovery support. To be recommended by NICE, an intervention must be evidence-based and cost-effective. There is strong evidence from research that prescribing opiate substitutes can lead to a reduction in the use of heroin and related harmful behaviours such as sharing needles, theft, reduces hospital admissions, deaths and the likelihood of misusing other substances. Research also demonstrates that engagement with treatment services promotes recovery and improved quality of life, improved well-being and social relationships compared with those still taking illicit substances. The research also shows that those in specialist drug treatment are far less vulnerable to risk of overdose and subsequent drug-related death. The Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs Recovery Committee, which is a national body established to advise government on drug policy, has concluded that alongside the protective nature of opioid substitution therapy, there is strong evidence that time limiting this therapy would result in the majority of users relapsing into heroin use. Substitution therapy is crucial, but is only one element of a comprehensive approach to achieve successful outcomes for people with substance misuse disorders. In summary, there's an extensive body of research which evidences that those illicit drug users receiving structured treatment, including OST, are safer and achieve better outcomes than those who do not. Opioid substitution therapy is provided by Northumberland as part of a wider treatment system by Northumberland Recovery Partnership based on evidence-based best practice.
Supplementary.
Thank you for the answer. I don't think that what you've said has actually provided evidence of successful treating drug addiction, perhaps replacing heroin with methadone, certainly not improving lives. The evidence that I've heard from methadone users is the very significant length of time that people have been kept on methadone, which is a zombie-like drug and in many ways is more harmful than heroin. There's also an alarming concern with links with suicides. So can I ask you to ask the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee to look at some specific facts, such as the average length of time that people have been kept on methadone, the link to suicide, and also the commercial interest in certain companies by continuing to have people on this drug?
I can certainly look into that and look to the Scrutiny Committee. I mean, there are people in Northumberland who haven't represented in 6 months, and that makes a big difference to the impact on the lives of those people. But certainly I can take that further, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Councillor David Ledger, question 2 to Peter Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. In his opening speech of this administration, the leader praised the former Chief Executive Officer of this council for leading a strong and stable organisation. Can the leader therefore inform us why the council accounts have not been signed off and when he predicts this process will take place?
Thank you, Councillor Ledger. Obviously a lot of water under the bridge since the start of this council, and quite a number of aspects of the council's operation have become a lot more clear to us over the last 6 or 7 months. I can assure you the council's accounts have been signed off. They were signed off by the council's audit committee on the 22nd of November. And the council's accounts have now been filed. But the reason for the delay, and this is the first time ever that we've had to file the accounts with a qualifying statement for the year ending 31st of March 2017. In a highly unusual step, the council's auditors, EY, refused to sign off the accounts without the qualification because, according to them, there were some significant weaknesses in proper arrangements for acting in the public interest, and evidence of the principles and values of sound governance were not appropriately applied to decisions taken for the year ended 31st of March 2017. This qualification actually relates to the council's development subsidiary Arch, of which you were then chairman, Councillor Ledger. Another reason for the delay was that an Arch asset had to be revalued on the instruction of EY. The previous administration, through Arch, had invested around £1.5 million in Ashington Town Football Club, which is chaired by the Labour Party National Chairman Ian Lavery MP. And the auditors insisted that the £1.9 million valuation of this asset, as was in Archer's books at that time, had to be revalued, and that revaluation reduced that by a massive £1.5 million to just £400,000, wiping £1.5 million off the council's assets. I think once again this piece of information and proof reasserts the fact that actually Arch has not been adding any real value to the council over the period so far, and still is a source of extreme concern to all of us in the administration. Thank you.
Supplementary? You skip that. Question 3, Councillor Julie Foster to Nick Oliver, who will take this.
Thank you, Chair. Since the Council announced an increase in council tax income for 2017-18, primarily due to 1,500 new homes being built and a much higher new build figure predicted for this year, can the leader explain why pressure has been placed on parish councils to accept greater responsibility from NCC through current partnership arrangements, and why most of the increased tax income is not being spent on the Police Directorate to enhance services delivered by this all-purpose unitary authority and ensure our new residents receive the services they deserve and are paying for?
Thank you. This question sort of cuts across a number of portfolios, so I've been asked to answer it. I think the first point to make is that obviously building extra houses not only brings in additional council tax income, but it also puts additional strain on the services of the council and brings additional costs with it as well. Under this administration, no additional pressure and no additional responsibilities have been placed on town and parish councils. There are a number of current partnership arrangements in place that enhance core services, but these core services have not changed in any locations since May this year, last year, 2017. Furthermore, the administration gave an undertaking at the Town and Parish Council Conference in October that when setting the 2018-19 budget, we wouldn't make negative changes to key frontline services in local services that would affect town and parish councils, and we're going to honour that commitment. It is our intention to include several growth items within the proposed 18-19 revenue budget in order to accommodate the increased demand on the waste services from housing growth, and to ensure that this key frontline service continues to be consistently delivered to a high standard, and also to invest in improvements to both weed control and verge maintenance arrangements across the county. As an administration, we're committed to working closely with town and parish councils to make best use of all the resources available in order to deliver the best service outcome for local communities.
Supplementary? No, thank you. Right, great. Question 4, Councillor Davey to John Riddle.
Now that members have been informed by letter that Dissington Garden Village project has reached a major milestone and fully complies with its planning conditions, can the leader explain the next steps for this minded to approve project, and when can we expect to see physical work commence on the site?
Thank you, Councillor. As this is a planning related question, I'll endeavour to answer it for you. I presume when you say informed by letter, I presume you are referring to the email from Richard Robson to all members.
Well, Chair, I had a letter which was the same word as...
Okay, all right. Well, you know, I've got to be careful what I'm saying here. I'm somewhat surprised when it's still a live planning application here, so we don't want to produce any decisions. But notwithstanding the minded to approve resolution from the Strategic Planning Committee in March 2017, the Dissington Garden Village outline planning application will need to be reconsidered by the Strategic Planning Committee, given that the withdrawal of the Northumberland Core Strategy in July, which provided emerging policy support for the proposal, represents a material change in circumstances since the previous resolution was made.
Okay, supplementary? Councillor Dungworth for number 5 to John Riddle again.
Labour members wish to thank the Council for taking steps to provide adequate educational facilities for the increase in school-aged children across South East Northumberland and the rural coalfield at the moment. However, current planning applications, maybe it was a Freudian slip, and population growth predictions show that this increase is not set to reduce until well after 2040. As things stand, this would mean many children in the areas that are expected to bear the brunt of this increase could face years of being taught in mobile classrooms. Can the leader confirm if there are any plans to build new schools or to extend existing buildings in the areas of high growth, such as New Hartley, Holywell, Amble, Ellington, Blythe, Bedington or Ashington? And I'm sure there are other areas as well.
Councillor Riddle is going to answer this because it comes under his portfolio.
Okay, thank you. The local authority has processes in place to manage and monitor pupil places across the county to ensure that it fulfils its statutory duty to provide sufficient places. Part of this process includes the monitoring of new housing plans and developments where planning permissions have been granted. With regard to the southeast of the county, at present the county has secured grant funding from the Educational Skills Funding Agency, and we have already put in place plans to supply additional places in Blythe, Horton Grange Primary School, New Delaval County Primary School, Newsham Primary School, Cramlington Beacon Hill will be extended to become a 2-form entry school from a 1-form entry school, and Morpeth additional places are being created at Morpeth Chantry Middle School. We have also added an additional 15 places per year group at Seaton Delaval First School to address these issues.
Supplementary?
I suppose my supplementary is really that I'm not talking about the here and now, that the question acknowledges actually moves have been made currently to address the current need is actually what's being planned, because I think anybody who's involved with education at any level knows that there are huge pressures that are going to grow, that they're not going to be solved by the decisions that are made now. Welcome.
That's a statement rather than a question. So.
No, I think I still am saying I haven't got an answer to the question.
John?
About the
I'm
next stage of development.
happy to give you a response.
While developers purchase land, this does not always mean that new housing will eventually follow. Even when new housing does follow, it only yields a rate of 32 children per 100 houses. That's across all year groups from reception to year 11. It is for this reason that the local authority closely monitors school population predictions, and to eliminate the waste of limited public resources only supplies additional places where there is a clear need to do so.
Right. I'm going to continue with questions to see how they go, because we're going quite well with them. So I'll go to Councillor Heppel.
Thanks, Chair. Can the leader please explain whether his administration is serious about delivering a new core strategy and local plan document by 2020? And can he explain the consultation steps required to achieve a completion within that timescale.
Again, this comes under the portfolio of Councillor Riddle. Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Apple is on the working group, I think he would know the answer to this, but the Local Development Scheme, the LDS, which sets out the timetable for preparation of the new Northumberland Local Plan, was endorsed by Cabinet on the 23rd of November this 2017, representing a very firm and clear commitment to preparation of the plan within the timescale set out in that document. They are on the public website for you to see. We are very confident that we can meet those timescales. We are actually working to see if that timescale can actually be condensed rather than extended, but we're very confident that we can complete it on that timeline.
Okay, any supplementary?
Yeah, yes, I have, Chair. Thank you for that, Councillor Riddle. I've got a supplementary. I just want to give us brief context of the supplementary.
Go on, brief.
The recent North of Tyne minded to approve devolution deal has a commitment to, and I quote, accelerate the delivery of new homes and support delivery in strategic sites. Now, this devolution deal, together with the removal of the protection against speculative development in Northumberland by the withdrawal of the core strategy, probably means that we're going to get much more housing development in the county. How does Councillor Riddle square this commitment with his administration's commitment to limit the number of dwellings built in that planned period of the core strategy to 19,500?
Right, thank you.
It doesn't necessarily follow what you're saying is true. It is true that the removal of the core strategy does immediately leave us a vacuum where there is a gap where speculative development could take place, but developers need time to actually get things off the blocks. And you're talking about the North of Tyne devolution deal here. Lots of those things are all to work up yet. But in actual fact, the existing core strategy, I believe, was destined to fail at examination in public, and this new combined document, which is a very condensed timescale, I believe will be delivered on time and will give us the protection we need.
Right, Councillor Spithenbank. Microphone.
Thank you. Can the leader explain what process was used to halt the Clickerman planning project, and what was the predicted benefit level to the County of Northumberland if that project had been allowed to move forward to its natural conclusion?
It's going to be answered by Councillor Riddle again, who's got a busy day. It's his portfolio.
Thank you, Councillor Swithenbank. This is a little bit unusual coming from you, but never mind. The outline planning application for residential development on the Clickerman Farm site is currently being reviewed by the National Planning Casework Unit to inform a decision by the Secretary of State on whether he wishes to call in the application for his own determination. The application has not been halted, as is being suggested, and rather is following due process, as would be normal, and is being referred to the NPCU for calling a decision, given that the scheme represents a significant departure from the current development plan. The reason it was a departure was because that land was at that time in the green belt. It was against policy. It was minded to approve in March 17 under the previous administration, and it was referred to the National Planning Casework Unit, as would be normal practice, before the elections in May.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, if you allow it, and I have indicated to Councillor Riddle that the tone already has had notice of the point I wish to make, if you'll allow me. It's connected with this and other issues, and clearly both Councillor Riddle and I recently attended a scrutiny meeting that was very heartening, the cross-party support to work together to ensure that a Northumberland planning document is put into practice as soon as possible. I simply make the point that for at least 2 years, our planning department and the members who serve on strategic planning are working with policies that are done to be 10 years old, many of which are still valid, but some are not. And I simply make the point, I would urge members, especially senior members, to be cautious about making statements regarding the use of land for particular applications, because there is a danger you could drift into a position on a major application where it could look as if predetermination is taking place. I would urge everyone to be cautious. We all have strong views about major planning issues, but for heaven's sake, let's not make the job of the planning department or those members serving on strategic planning any more difficult than it will be over the next 2 years.
Right.
Let's work together on this one.
I'll take that as a statement, not a question. So I don't think
I'm asking if the member could concur with those principles.
They are sound principles, Councillor Sutton, and I would concur with them. Members do need to be very careful not to be seen to be predetermining any applications.
Councillor Davey to Veronica Jones.
Yes, I'm pleased to give Councillor Riddle a little bit of a Councillor Jones, as NHS funding in England, it's becoming increasingly difficult for residents to get timely appointments at local GP surgeries. This is particularly noticeable in South East Northumberland, where residents are voting with their feet and placing extra pressure on A&E facilities, especially in Cramlington. Would Councillor Jones make representation with the NHS to raise some of the issues, to raise the issue of availability of appointments at surgeries, and would you come back to the next council meeting either with a representative from Northumbria NHS to explain what's going wrong, or come back with an action plan to deal with this acute problem which may be putting lives at risk? And it's just a matter of timing that it's been in the national press today. I wrote this question several weeks ago, as you know.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Well, the NHS doesn't actually collect data about the number of GP appointments that are available. They're actually, there's no reason that the number has not been falling in Northumberland. Indeed, there's actually been a recent increase. As a result of the national programme of extending access to primary care, practices across Northumberland were required to increase their opening hours and the number of appointments available from October 2017, and at least 960 additional appointments each week have been available over the past few months. The most recent national survey of patients' views from their GP practices, carried out in July 2017, found that 86% of patients have been able to get an appointment when they wanted to see their GP or nurse from their GP surgery. That's slightly above the national average, which is actually 84%. Patients' views about how easy it is to arrange an appointment do vary between practices, and we're aware of that, both within South East Northumberland and elsewhere, but there's no reason to think there's a particular problem. NHS data suggests that people in areas nearest to any A&E department often choose to go there rather than to their GP practice, because they see that that is the quickest way to get help, regardless of the actual availability. The experience of the new hospital in Cramlington has followed this pattern, with people living nearby making the most of it. You do suggest that an NHS representative comes to the council meeting, but to be honest, it is the scrutiny committee that would look into any issues on the health services within Northumberland. Your question seems to imply that Northumbria NHS is responsible for primary care, but it's actually commissioned by NHS England and the CCG. I think you probably meant, Councillor Davey, I think you probably meant the Northumberland CCG. But the CCG will actually be doing a presentation at the next Health Overview and Scrutiny on the 16th of January about primary care and access, which is really what you're looking at. The regulator is actually NHS England, and if there is a continuing issue with appointments, it will be through NHS England and the that we looked at, and the Overview Scrutiny Committee would be able to call it into there.
Okay, supplementary.
Yes, I've got a supplementary. And I'm pleased that you corrected me on the CCG. The supplementary is about the actual, the person from the CCG should be armed with this supplementary and bring some answers with them. Can you explain why the successful holistic team arrangements in Blythe have been shelved? The GPs, they're now operating as an amalgamated group of several practices from one building, and their holistic teams of district nurses, other practitioners, people who can help, operating from another building. It's now falling apart, as well as not being able to get appointments with
Can I just ask, is this the practice, the railway practice in Blythe?
Well, it's all of the practices in Blythe
Right.
now appear to be working from one building and their teams are in another building. That's not good practice at all.
I'm well aware there's been some mergers, which is now the largest practice, and to be honest, they've both scored badly on the patient survey. I'm well aware of that. One issue of the past year has been some systems problems associated with all that merging together, which have caused difficulties in making appointments. The issue is being addressed, but I'm happy to keep monitoring it.
Okay, and Councillor Davey, I did bring this up at the Health and Wellbeing Board a month ago, that I think we should be looking at this as well. So we're on your case. I'll continue. Question 9, Councillor Lynn Grimshaw to the leader. It's going to Richard Wearmouth, this one.
Thank you, Chair. In September, the whistleblower highlighted that the Arch Board were represented with detailed plans for a 4,000 home super village outside Pegswood. Some 4 months after taking control of the council and that of the company, they promised to scrap. Can the leader explain how using Arch, possibly under a different name, which he now controls to build thousands of homes across the county, is consistent with his promise to limit housing numbers, scrap Arch, and help private sector developers to make a profit in the county?
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Grimshaw. It's a bit of a shame, isn't it, that whistleblowers in Arch are a little bit like buses. You wait literally for years and then a load of them come all at once. But if I might just turn to your question. I've written to yourself and to Councillor Towns about this previously, this being the land between Pegswood and Ashington. The acquisition...
Excuse me, that actually isn't the question. The question is, can you explain how using Arch, possibly under a different name, I'm not asking about the...
You don't want me to answer the first question?
The question is can, starts from can, Councillor Wearmouth.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood, because obviously you make reference to the 4,000...
Hang on, please. Councillor Grimshaw, can you just let him answer, and then will you have a supplementary? Or I can do like Councillor Dickinson used to do and shut me up by saying I've already had it. And I know I've named you, Scotty.
No, well, the reason I mentioned that is just to make sure, because it is referenced in the question, and I provided an answer to that previously in writing. On to the wider question, and you make reference to housing across the county, but fail to reference the fact that in your own core strategy that you planned for 26,000 houses or so across the county, deleting swathes of greenbelt against the wishes of local people, the upshot of which was to make the county a paradise for developers as they were pursuing applications in the county. But to add insult to injury, of course, you were doling out money, it would seem, up to £75 million to one single house builder, and there were plans for a further 200 houses here on County Hall against the wishes of the people of Morpeth and of the county, all to justify your multi-million-pound HQ that you wanted to build a few miles along the road. Turning to the administration here, I mean, by contrast, we're actually bringing about a local plan that's fit for purpose, putting back that green belt which your party deleted. And we have documents in place to show the actual necessary houses that are required over what will become the local plans period, and that will be far less than the 26,000. When it comes to scrapping Arch, obviously we're replacing it with a company that is going to be fit for purpose and will help deliver the houses that the county actually needs, which are affordable houses, and I hope that we can all agree that that's something that we should be pursuing with the utmost urgency.
Is there supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I don't know if that's going to be possible when you've made the statement about, you know, you're helping the developers when you have no core strategy to actually do that. And I think that would probably increase the developments, not decrease them. So I would just like to know how you intend to do that. Councillor Wearmouth, thank you.
Well, I don't know if it's really something for myself. Councillor Riddle has already addressed this point, but I'll nevertheless be happy to give it a bit of a go in addition. I mean, when we've looked at what we're doing with the core strategy, we've we've heard already that it's going to be in place in a matter of years. There's a very small period of time where there's a policy that needs to be put in place through consultation with the public, through the issue of draft documentation, and it begins to pick up very quickly. We've already taken steps through the Cabinet to look at housing numbers and to make sure that there's a robust case there in terms of the demonstrable housing need, and I think that we're increasingly well protected as a county, much better than we would have been if we just left the door open to 26,000 houses, which is what you wanted in the first place.
Okay. Right, I had allocated up to half an hour, but I better not cut Councillor Dickinson off. So, Councillor Dickinson.
I welcome the briefing scheduled for February relating to the dreadful implementation of universal credit that is planned to hit Northumberland residents this year, despite calls to the Tory government to pause and fix the issues experienced so far. Will he extend the briefing to invite third sector organisations who will pick up the brunt of the face-to-face trauma experienced by residents?
Councillor Oliver.
Yes, I'll take this question. It's true to say that there have been concerns expressed in Westminster by all parties about the rollout of universal credit, and therefore it was good to see in the Chancellor's November budget statement that he's made some very important concessions, reducing the working times for universal credit, a more generous package of advanced payments, and also extending housing benefit during the transition period from the old system to the new system. In terms of the actual briefings, they are intended for members only as an information exercise on the rollout of the universal credit full service for this county, which is scheduled to be in November and December of this year. An updated brief will also be done nearer the implementation dates. In addition to this, a universal credit steering group has been set up, and that group held its first meeting on the 23rd of November last year. The group consists of representatives of services within the council, including benefits, housing, policy, welfare rights, poverty lead, as well as representatives from Arch, from the Healthcare Trust, from Places for People, from the Citizens Advice Bureau, Age Concerned, BRIC, housing associations, and some private sector landlords. The DWP also attend, and a further meeting is due to take place of this steering group on the 17th of January. So as a result of these initiatives, there is no further need to have third sector organisations at this briefing, as they're up to speed with developments and are working with the council to ensure as smooth a transition as possible.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I welcome the fact that those organisations are participating in a working group that I was not aware of. Others may well have been. Despite Councillor Oliver's positive changes listed by the Chancellor, some of us think that families being asked to wait over 5 weeks for money is still an issue that drives families into poverty and debt, and will certainly do that to Northumberland residents based on the additional impact of the rural nature. My question is, will the leader of this council confirm that this council will not evict or penalise any family that has fallen into arrears because of universal credit?
Peter, do you want to?
I'm not sure that we can make such a blanket commitment, but I think what we will do is we'll work very hard across all departments within the council and with all of our partners to help everybody through this transition period.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn to Councillor Homer.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Homer. I understand that this administration has been reviewing library provision within the county. We have seen more than 478 libraries close since 2010. Over 8,000 library workers have lost their jobs. I strongly believe that our libraries have huge local value and must be protected. They do much more than just lend books. In Linemouth, our library is currently only open for 2 afternoons, for 9 hours a week, but nevertheless we regard it as a vital facility for the village and would welcome its development to widen its attraction to potential users within not only Linemouth but also the surrounding villages. Does Councillor Homer agree with me that libraries are indeed an essential service in our community, and that this council has a duty, therefore, to provide a library service that is fit for purpose?
Councillor Homer.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think it's fair to say that the current library service inherited by this administration is in part fragmented and dysfunctional in its current form. Some library staff work for Active Northumberland, as you may know, and others work for Northumberland County Council in 2 separate departments. Some libraries are standalone, some are integrated, and some are co-located. The picture is very different across the county. This has impacted greatly on the level of service to our residents and the users of these libraries, and it's also resulted in quite low staff morale within the service. The Library Service Review is aimed to ensure that Northumberland has a modern library service which supports all of the residents across our county. The Library Service Review has been extensive and is near to reaching some conclusions and some recommendations which will be considered by Cabinet in due course. It's important to this administration that our library service provides the most comprehensive service that it can within the resources that it has available to it. And further details of the Library Service Review and its associated conclusions and recommendations will be made available in the very, very near future. As a personal message to you and the award that you represent, if you want to talk about that in the future when those recommendations are made, then I'm very happy to have that conversation with you.
Supplementary or not?
Yes, thank you. I welcome Councillor Homer's comments, and I think she does agree with me that libraries are an essential part of this. Will this council, or does this council therefore commit to providing funding for library services in the long term, and to maintaining an adequate level of resources and paid library professionals, and to stopping any outsourcing of the management of our libraries to volunteer groups or private companies? Will it provide a service that is acceptable to all?
Councillor Homer.
Thank you. I think it's important to say since 2015 up until May this year there has been significant changes in the library service. Staffing levels have reduced, the floor space, the footprint of the services reduced, visitors have decreased by over 11.5%. The number of books that have issued have been down by 31%, memberships declined by 12%, and 51% of current registered users are currently inactive. But despite these declines, there is an increase of over 52% of users registering for digital My Library services. So the picture is very fluid. It's changed a lot in the last 2 years. A lot of the provision made by the County Council has changed. The one thing I can promise you at this point is we want a fit-for-purpose library service. The Library Review will give us those recommendations. They'll be considered by this council, and we will get the best service we possibly can for the residents of this county.
Thank you. Right, let's move on to item 7. We have received the minutes of Cabinet meetings held on. This is page 35. Tuesday the 7th of November. Anybody on this meeting? 23rd of November. Nobody. And the 12th of December. Are we happy to take those? Agreed? Right, okay. Item 8. Receive, consider the minutes of the following committees. Item 1. Corporate Services. So I have Councillor Bourne.
Okay, after
all that exciting build-up, I would simply like to move the minutes of the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee, pages 63 to 70.
Anything on those pages? Can't see anybody. We'll be going to Guy Renner-Thompson next for the Family and Children's Services, pages 71 to 86. Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Hello, Chair. We have two meetings over this time. The first one was on Tuesday, the 31st of October, which mainly dealt with Actington First School. Governors of James Calder Spence Federation have proposed closure as of Christmas. The Scrutiny Committee decided to postpone the closure until the 31st of August, so to keep the school open for the rest of the year, which was approved by the I think it's good. It shows that the scrutiny system does work. You know, we propose things and they're carried through.
Chair, can I just ask a point of order, please? Can the councillor move minutes and give a brief update on the meeting he wasn't at?
Sorry, say it again?
That's that week.
The councillor's moved in minutes and given an overview to the council to a meeting he wasn't at. You can't do that.
Well, give the microphone to Councillor Wallace. He chaired the meeting.
The second set of minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I chaired the meeting.
Can you stand up, please, Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. I chaired the minute. Can I move the minutes, please?
Thank you. Anything on the minutes, Councillor? No. Right, bring the microphone back down. And the next one?
Next one was on Tuesday, the 16th of November. The main item there was the new proposal to put an onus on developers. If a local school has a capacity of less than 5%, the council will receive a declaration. So that's obviously.
Okay, any questions on any of that? I can't see any hands, so let's move to Councillor Jeff Reid for Communities in Place, pages 87 to 90. Councillor Reid.
Just move the minutes of the Communities in Place Movement Scrutiny Committee as laid out on pages 87 and 90.
Any comment? Can't see anybody. Let's microphone goes to Jeff Watson for the minutes of Health and Wellbeing, pages 91 to 120.
Thank you, Chair. This refers to two meetings. The meeting on the 2nd of October.
3rd of October.
Sorry. The two meetings anyway. The last meeting I have no comment on at all. The first meeting, which refers to Roxbury, just for as the main point, I just let members know that we referred this to the Secretary of State for the decision. The Secretary of State has asked us to justify those decisions. A letter has been put together at the moment to reply to that. That's for information.
Okay, Councillor Bridget.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I obviously attended the meeting on the 17th of October relating to Rothbury Community Hospital, and quite frequently in this chamber you will witness criticism coming from both sides and from various political perspectives. One of the things that I would like to say is the scrutiny committees of this council are an excellent example of cross-party working. And the meeting that took place on the 17th of October was just that, and I would specifically like to say thank you, because I haven't done publicly as of yet, to Councillors Foster, Lowry, Moore, Nisbet and Simpson for actually having the courage to refer the decision to the Secretary of State. They were a fantastic example of what can be achieved by local representatives and cross-party working, and I thank them very much. You mentioned the letter that is now being sent to the Secretary of State. Will that be shared with members of this council and obviously the local member?
Council.
I'm sure that letter will become available once it's issued to the Secretary of State.
Yes. Yes.
The letter will become available.
Yes, Councillor Dale.
big things is you've probably seen in the news, and it's been in headlines the last 2 days, about the lack of facilities in the hospitals. Are having problems. They're now cancelling operations. We have issues with ambulance response times, and we're having a real issue across the area because of the ageing population, the flu epidemic, and it's a roll-on knock-on effect. Our area in Tynedale is obviously always concerned because we have rural areas. However, those areas closer to the centre also have more complicated ambulance response times. Can I ask this council that we ask the ambulance service to come and give an update to all the area committees on their new response times, but also inform us of the issues they are having at the moment. Everybody in our area is very concerned, and I know people on this council who will support that, and I hope that everybody will support that we can go to the next area council meetings, committee meetings, and have representatives from the ambulance services. And also if we could have figures about the position as far as the hospitals are concerned, especially the emergency services. It would be helpful also if we could have the ambulance audit for last year to see where the issues are with the differences in the ambulance response times. Could I ask the council please to move that we can actually take this forward to the next area council meeting?
Councillor Dale, I've been informed that the agendas are out for this January round, but we can look at the March round where we can get other NHS services to the area committees as well as the ambulance trust. Yeah, at the moment the services are all flat out, so I think, you know, we will put it in the pipeline for March or that area. They are flat out at the moment, we know that, so that's what we'll do. Councillor Dale?
Sorry, thank you. Can I ask if I have any more further representations, who they should contact at this council?
If it's operational, can I explain that again?
If it's operational, it would go to, if it's an operational issue, it would need to go to North East Ambulance Service or the relevant provider directly, because otherwise there's a delay built in to a response to a patient or family. If it's of a strategic nature or a scrutiny issue, then either the sorry. I was just saying there, if it's a operational patient or family issue, it should be redirected directly to either North East Ambulance Service or the relevant NHS provider. That's to prevent any delay in a response. If it's about a strategic issue, i.e. the functioning of health services across a local authority area, either to the scrutiny committee, or if it's a specific issue somebody wants looking at, then it would be referred to myself or Vanessa Bainbridge.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir?
2 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. This is something I'm particularly chasing on my board, as some of you will know. I've been in touch with you, chasing up ambulance response times, not in the busy winter period, I hasten to add. And I'd very much like to look at a copy of the new national ambulance response times. When
we'll get that.
Will that be available?
We will get that. We will be sent that to all members, and it will eventually end up at a scrutiny, as most things do, and we will get that included in the reports that will come to the area committees. Anything else on the minutes? Right. Next one is Health and Wellbeing Board, which is me, pages 121 to 126. Can't see anybody. Next one, Audit Committee. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. Can I just point out for the completeness of the minutes, I was in attendance at that meeting, so could I be added on to that, please?
We're going to make a note of that, Karen. Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, mine was just on the Safeguarding Adults annual report.
Page?
Page 122. It was basically just to mention that, you know, in this particular time where safeguarding for adults and children is so important, I really welcomed the improvement in performance for the 2016-17 and really pay thanks to the Chair, Paula Mead, for all her efforts.
Thank you. Audit, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. In moving the minutes of the meeting on the 22nd of November, the leaders already spelt out that despite delays and some changes, the accounts were eventually approved. It's for various reasons to be discussed soon. It's difficult to have confidence in what was inherited from the previous administration. Also, just to clarify, on page 133, a discussion ensued after the review of external inspection reports, adult and children's services. And members of the audit committee, because obviously audit, we're not just talking about risk in terms of financial risk, but we discussed a range of risks that follow schools that become academies and continue to fail, not just financial but educational, but also safeguarding. And it was mentioned that there could be discussion to have a report done by the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I since found out that the Audit Committee did indeed do a similar report under the previous chair. So I just wanted to clarify that, but otherwise I propose moving these minutes.
Councillor Davey.
Question, Chair, on page 129, the second bullet point, where it says in here that the Dissington scheme was no longer going ahead. Is that a referral to the Dissington Garden Village scheme?
Councillor Hill.
Then I need to follow on. Then you've already been spoken to by Councillor Swithenbank today regarding a determination of planning applications. This to me looks like it's determined not to go ahead.
Can I just intervene? Surely it's the car park that's referred to, not the scheme itself.
No, it says the scheme, and the Chair of Audit has confirmed that it's the scheme.
We will seek clarification of the minute.
Yeah. Could I have the clarification in writing, Chair?
Yeah, why not? How else would you let one?
Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Right. Thank you. As Chair of Audit for the last, 4 years, I would like to say just 1 or 2 points. First of all, the auditor's annual audit letter is always interesting, and I think that the council, I hope that all of you have had the opportunity to read it. This council, this administration has asked for a review which was undertaken, and the council, the external auditors found no issue. They thought that maybe we could have the budget prepared in a better way, so I will look forward to seeing if that happens. Secondly, they did do actually value for money, and they did look at various things such as the Arch, the Cramlington shops, can't remember. Anyway, there was no issues with that. It was value for money, so that was quite sound, and I was pleased with that. The statement of accounts, which is near the end, which sometimes works with the annual government statements. It has been mentioned over and over again that Arch is going to be dissolved. or Arch has been, it's been decided by the board that Arch is to be dissolved. And I do, I'm glad to see that in the statement of accounts, a new paragraph has been added, and it says it was agreed by the Arch board on the 17th of November to dissolve the company. However, as Arch is a wholly owned subsidiary of the council must consider the decision of the Arch board and make appropriate recommendations through its own decision-making process. And I hope that will happen, and I hope people will, I presume when we have a conversation about this, which I presume we are having a conversation about, that people will be able to put their thoughts thoroughly forward, because this is a big, big issue. Just to say thank you very much to everybody, I'd like to say thank you to the internal auditor and all the officers who we've worked for, and I wish everybody well in the future. Can I just ask one thing though? Likewise, Councillor Davey has discussed the technical services one, which is the Ponteal and Dissington Garden Village Relief Road. Also that's come out is the £15 million for the new car park, which is mentioned in the report. And I just wondered, are you having new thoughts about that? Are we not going to have a new car park in Hexham? Or what? I just think that I would like to know what that's about.
Anybody? Glenn? Nothing to do with Hexham. Nothing to do with Hexham, I'm told. Do you want to, Nick?
I think just to...
Councillor Oliver.
Just go back to an earlier point, Councillor Dale mentioned that the external auditor found no issues. That's plainly not correct. I think there were two significant issues. There was a qualifying statement for the first time ever in the council's accounts, and there was also a revaluation of an asset wiping £1.5 million off the council's balance sheet. So to me, yeah, there may not be issues to the previous chair of the audit committee, but to me they are significant issues.
Can I just take that back, please? Because if you listen to me, what I said was apart from Arch, and it's the business about Arch that is the concern. And the Arch is they did find issues, but not of impropriety. They have not stated in their impropriety. They have found different things. I can read out exactly what they've said if you want me to read it out. But there was allegations of impropriety, and they have not actually found that exactly. But I just think that we need to discuss that in confidential in the pink paper.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. What I would say is we will be discussing things in a confidential section. I can say, frankly, that the governance of Arch was absolutely shocking, and there will be an audit what went wrong. In terms of propriety, what I would say is the clue is, before making any firm statements, that there is currently a police investigation. That's why we can't say any more.
Thank you. Right. I think we're treading on. Go on.
Please note that it has been noted in the auditor's report that the audit committee were actually looking at reviewing the governance of Arch in this coming year, and it is stated in that.
Well, I'm sure that we'll find all this in time. Right, let's move on. Devolution Working Group, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I'm just happy to propose the minutes of the first meeting of the Devolution Working Group.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. You all know this is my favourite subject. If you ever get the microphone, you feel as though you're standing in a club just about to sing. But anyway, yes, I won't. I'm a bit disappointed actually at these minutes because they don't, for me, for the first time, I was there and I don't think these minutes reflect at all the mood of the meeting. They certainly don't reflect my mood anyway. I could go on for hours about everything that I think is wrong with this. But all I will say is on page 142 where it says deal content. What my query was, someone else might have mentioned about inflation, but what my query is, it's not £20 million a year for 30 years. It's £20 million for 5 years, and then if the government think you haven't spent it properly, you aren't going to get any more. So it's not £600 million, it's 20 million for 5 years. And on top of that, the cost of the Mayor's office, which you want to argue about it, but it'd be about £1 million, I would have thought, has to come out of that £20 million. So it's not £20 million, it's £19 million. So I think these minutes have been sanitised, for want of a better word. There is not one real criticism. All this is laid out about how wonderful it is. There are a lot of pitfalls in this deal. There's a lot wrong with it. And well, for a start, I would never have an elected mayor, as you know. I think it's a complete and absolute waste of time, and they will not be able to fully encompass all of the residents of this area. And again, it's not north of Tyne, because there's more of Northumberland south of the Tyne than the combined areas of Newcastle and North Tyneside. But I shall just say two more things. The transport thing on page 143. Northumberland will lose its membership of that, because the new authority will only have 3 places, and one of them has to be the mayor. And the other thing that I don't like about it is that the architects of the deal, the present leader and the previous leader, are both on this working group, and I don't think they should be. I think it should just be backbench members, and if they want to know something on a political edge, then these 2 people should be asked to come and answer questions. They shouldn't be part of it.
Right, pass the microphone to Councillor Hill. Right, I've got a list coming, so keep going. Yeah, sorry, but yeah. Previous leader, you didn't name him. But I will allow you to speak if you want to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, clarification. 144, when it talks about undertaking consultation, is the consultation going to involve a public referendum?
No. Can you take it to Councillor Davey and then Rafed?
Chair, I'd just like to remind Councillor Reid, and I don't mind naming him so he can come back on this, that it is not the role of a minor member of a coalition to guide the way that another party, the largest opposition party on this council, directs the whole group, direct their people who will sit on this panel. I don't get involved with Liberal politics, and he should not get involved in ours. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ruffhead and Councillor Dale. Ruffhead.
Thank you, Chair. As the member who brought this motion to create this group in the first place, I sort of welcome that this has actually gone ahead. And just to highlight a couple of issues from the minutes for myself, in reference to Councillor Reid, the name of the new authority is yet to be determined, so we've still got hope that it could be called South of Tweed. And
you took that one joke from me.
Yeah. And in terms of devolution as well, not just looking at the North of Tyne devolution, I hope this group also looks at the Borderlands Initiative, because I kind of say this line quite a lot. For many years, Berwick has been neglected by this authority, and sort of since the demise of the Borough Council in the 70s, actually. And Borderlands Initiative and the North of Tyne devolution actually allows Berwick to get money and funding from both sides of the border and actually be recognised as the true gateway between England and Scotland. So thank you for that.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Can I mention just 1 or 2 things? Transport. It is important that the Northumberland County Council do have an input into the Transport Committee. One of the things we do have is concessionary fares, and I was on the NECA Audit Committee for 4 years. One of the big issues I had a terminal fight with, and I agreed and worked with Darren, was actually the concessionary fares. And we need to ensure that we can establish that and that they don't get lost. The other thing is just to add a little bit of caution. I have no issues about the devolution deal. I'm a little bit upset, as some people are, because it's north of town and a lot of us live south of town, but never mind about that. What I do have an issue is about this statement of having £20 million a year for revenue. And can I just remind you, over the last, since 2008, we must have had about £180 million per year taken out of our revenue fund. And I don't know what North Tyneside had taken out, or indeed Newcastle City Council. And this year, between 2018 and I think 20, we have to find approximately 30 million. So I do hope that the committee or the mayor, whoever it is, goes out and fights for a better deal, because I don't think this is a good deal at all. Not for all of this, not for the whole of the 3 councils.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Chair. As Vice Chair of this working party, we have confirmation that it will be a true working party, as confirmed by the Leader of Council. I take a different opinion, having the current leader, as much as it pains me, and the previous leader together on that working group, who have both been involved in that deal-making process and fighting for Northumberland's case. It's good to have them on the working group. I look forward to the referendum within that working group on renaming it and including the words George Bay somewhere. Thank you.
What's that, east of George Bay? Councillor Reid. Were you named?
No, you don't have to.
The only trouble with calling it south of Tweed is that Berwick's north of the Tweed, but we'll not
Will you get upset?
Well, you know, I think geography is important, and I really do think it shows an arrogance and an ignorance by central government that are just going to bundle us all together, other than northerners, let them get on with it. The only other thing I meant to say before was about another councillor mentioned this earlier. The mayor will be in charge of strategic housing. The mayor will decide where these houses are going to be built. And if you haven't got a core strategy in place, you're going to get stung. And if any of you don't believe what I'm saying about what's in this deal, get Appendix G from the Cabinet meeting on December the 12th and actually read it and see what you're being sold. There's more pups in there than you've had hot dinners.
Councillor Jackson.
Right, thank you, Chair. Well, obviously there's been quite an extensive debate about this, and one or two myths have been put around that I can't let lie for too long.
Hang on, that's what's your point of order?
I did indicate to speak. Am I allowed to speak?
I didn't catch your eye, but Peter, let him speak.
I've let Berners.
Right, well, and you didn't send me a Winter Festival card this year.
May I speak without the television being on, please?
No. Councillor Jackson.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, one or two myths have been put around. The first is I'm really surprised that Councillor Reid being as anti-democratic as he is being, and obviously not agreeing with his colleagues in the rest of the northeast of England. Because actually these powers, and they're quite extensive, are actually being given from Whitehall. They decided all of these issues are decided by mandarins in Whitehall at the moment. Well, they're going to be devolved to this small area, and a mayor will be elected, whoever that is, actually will be accountable to the electorate ultimately, but also to a cabinet made up of members of the 3 authorities involved. So that person is very accountable. We've seen the success of some of these deals in other parts of the country, where that mayor can actually speak to government with the voice of authority, because that's an elected person. So we get Andy Burnham, for example, in Manchester, we get Andy Street in the West Midlands. They're getting a better deal for their areas from central government than we are at the moment, and we need to get in that game fairly quickly. The reason for the working group is because there's a lot of detail in the deal, the first meeting was actually to present that detail to the members of the working group so that they were much better informed about all of the various issues and all of the pots of money available. It's not just about the £20 million a year, which actually is promised in the deal for a 30-year period, but it's also about control of further education funding, which is something like £25 million a year, and that will be devolved to us to decide locally from next year onwards. And a lot of other things within it. So there will be a housing deal. There's no money specified for that, but we will get money to build more affordable housing and more housing for rent for our local people, and it would be wrong for us to turn that down. It's about accelerating that part of the housing market that the private sector won't deliver at the moment. And also within the deal, we will be the first rural growth pilot in the whole country, and that means an awful lot to Northumberland, because we've got towns right across Northumberland that need to be resurrected. They need a new life, and this will actually give us the funding for that. I mentioned, strategic housing was mentioned. There is nothing within the deal that gives the Mayor powers over strategic housing. It's actually about delivery of existing housing development on a sort of quicker and a more affordable basis. Strategic housing is actually no more than the existing duty to cooperate that we have with the other authorities anyway. And finally, within the deal, both the leader of the Labour group and myself fought very hard to include the Ashington Blythe Tyne line, and that will make a major difference to about half of the whole population of Northumberland. It really will open up that area of South and East Northumberland, and that is one reason alone to vote for it, but that's actually only a small part of the deal. So I'm willing to talk to people about the detail, because there's a lot more than we talked about today, and I hope we continue this debate as the months and weeks go on. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, there won't be a referendum, because it was actually part of a government policy, and they were elected on the back of that as part of their manifesto. So there has been a democratic input into that decision already, and it's been implemented in many other parts of the country on that basis. So the idea of an elected mayor is actually only a small part of the deal, and I think that Councillor Davey might concur with that. It's actually the powers to decide locally and have the funds to really make a difference, because that's what it's all about.
Right, okay, item 9, notice of motion. In accordance with the rules, Councillor Davey.
Well, Chair, I'll
speak after Councillor Davey.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. No, after you. I'll just, yeah.
Chair, as a rule, I wouldn't read my motion out. I rarely ever do, because everyone has it in front of them. But since we're being televised today, I will boringly ramble.
You're very smart.
And start the debate. This council notes that the emergence of various strands of social media as both a positive and a negative way of communicating the role of councillors and the policies of council. Many local authorities have specific policies to explain and regulate the use of social media, and this council supports the proposal to form a cross-party councillor group to bring forward a social media policy which will provide transparency and certainty in the use of social media across the council and its partners. Currently, there's no overarching policy to provide a framework for the authorised use of social media in developing communication policies and actions of the County Council, which creates a significant risk for this authority. Now, today we've been filmed. The councillors that are sitting in here who are formerly on Blythe Valley Council were filmed for donkeys. You know, went on for ages. But as I've explained to my group in the past, the Blythe Valley situation is where we are not at this moment in time. A suggestion was put forward by Cabinet, and Wayne Daly was one of the councillors involved in forming a policy on the filming of council. And it went through various scrutiny panels and various items, and eventually the council was filmed. Once the policy had been put in place, that policy today is old-fashioned because we didn't have all of the instantaneous social media that we have today. What we need to do as a group of councillors within this room is find out who owns the pictures that are on there, to find out how we're going to use the pictures that are on there, and find out how we're going to deal with people who misuse and mislead the public with the photographs that will be on these screens right across the country. Because that's what other councils have done with their policies, and we need to have a look at a number of policies and get something together to really make sure that we are the best at it,
right,
and not the worst at it. Today, of course, I had a bit of difficulty parking because I saw the Tory makeup vans and hairdressers were all sitting outside. But I'm sure in the future you'll develop a core strategy based on good makeup in offices before you come down here. So I'll pass over to my second.
I've got Councillor Jackson.
I'd be happy to second the motion.
Right, the
So I
motion.
don't need to ramble on anymore when I pass the mic to you.
Right, I think it gives, if you've got a leader and a former leader, it gives a bit more. So that.
I did read the motion, and I think essentially it's very non-political. I think we're looking at the best interests of the council, and actually not just ourselves. So I'm very happy to form a cross-party working group in it that doesn't necessarily have to include the two leaders of the major party, but or even the previous leader. But yeah, I think it's something we should have a look at. I think one thing that we should probably note is that we've actually already got a guidance note on the use of social media by members. But I think I take the point that none of us have probably read this document or remember seeing it for about sort of 5 or 6 years. It does need a refresh. Things do change. We've got this issue today of televising and broadcasting our council meetings, which I think is a very healthy thing for us to do. But we do all need clear guidelines on how that information is going to be used by all of us and by the council in the future. So I think for our own sakes and for the council's sakes and for the public's sake out there, we do need to have a very serious look on a cross-party basis about this whole issue, and that's why I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Right, it's seconded. Any debate? I've got Councillor Ledger and then Councillor Deal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And on that situation, that didn't mind giving way to you, although some of my friends here might not be too happy about it. But it's important that we get it right. I chaired a public meeting in this chamber last year on behalf of the PCC, who was meeting the people of Northumberland. There was a gentleman came and asked if he could film the meeting. I didn't have a problem with it, providing that as it was a public meeting, that there were members of the public who might not want to be filmed. And on the strength of that, the meeting went ahead. Unfortunately, during the course of the meeting, the gentleman was not very helpful to his own cause. And it was occasion, I didn't switch him off. The members of the public switched him off and asked if he could be removed from the chamber, or words to that effect. So it is very, very important that we do get right to make sure that the misuse that can happen, where people use and abuse social media in a way that's derogatory to the very nature of what we stand for, which is having a voice, and having the voice not doctored and shaken about a little bit and put out the other end in something that wasn't actually said. So I'm more than happy to give way. So,
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I'd like to also put in is about monitoring, because I think, as Councillor Ledger said before, there's some really quite nasty stuff out there, and I feel very sorry for officers who've had to bear the brunt. And I think that we need to have a strong monitoring process in place. to make sure that everybody's quite accountable for everything they put on their Facebook or use according to this council, that make sure it's totally true and honest.
Councillor Pidcock.
Can I speak after this motion has been passed?
What about?
It might be a bit subtle, that for you.
No. Well, you can speak now if you want.
No, thanks.
Right, anybody else on social media and the motion that is in front of us? See nobody. Grant, do you want to come back?
Yes, I'd just like to hope the Liberal Democrats don't try to get involved in who the Labour group wish to put on this committee. And I'm sure that eventually we'll actually get it down to formulating a very good policy that helps us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10, sorry. Oh, sorry. I'll have a vote, sorry. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Abstentions? Well, that's unanimous. Item 10. Report of the Director of Finance. 1. Revisions to the Council's Constitution, LGPS. Councillor Oliver.
We've already discussed earlier the merger of the council pension fund, the local government pension scheme with the Tyne and Wear pension scheme. So this item is to deal with two issues. First of all, to remove the requirement to assess and determine applications regarding the disposal of lump sum death benefits from the Northumberland County Council Staff Appeals Committee and move it to the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund Head of Pensions. The second recommendation is to remove Clause 7, pensions, which makes reference to the councillor access to the local government pension scheme, because we no longer have access to that local government pension scheme as of 2014 from Part 7 of the Constitution. So basically, I think in terms of lump sum death benefits, it's a very rare occurrence, and the current situation would not be feasible moving forward. It wouldn't be in the best interest of the beneficiaries of the lump sum death because it would increase delays. And so what's being proposed here is a more effective, a more timely, and also a system that's been sort of recommended by the Aon who administer the pension, who provide advice to the pension. So I don't propose to say too much more. You've had the papers, and except to say if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Seconded. Everybody happy? Agreed. Item 2. Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Reporting Period 01 April to September. Nick Oliver.
Yeah, this will be even briefer. This obviously is a report for information, which is every 6 months. And I'm just happy to report that the Treasury Management of Northumberland County Council continues to be very good. And I just recommend that members approve the report.
Is that seconded? No, you want to speak?
Yes.
Come on.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for that, Councillor Oliver. I note in the page 165 on capital expenditure 7.1 of the 261 million reduction in investment, in capital investment in Northumberland, something like 35 million is in relation to schools. Now we know that educational attainment for our children rests from primarily two things. One is the quality of teaching, but the other one is the quality of the accommodation, the schools themselves. So can you tell me where the 17.35 million, in which school that will be invested in?
I'm I'm sorry, I can't actually give you the specifics on that, but the plans have changed, and there will be, as you'll discover when we come to discuss the budget in February. There's a very ambitious investment programme planned for schools, and we have some very, very ambitious plans to improve the education right across the county, because as Councillor Daly said at a previous meeting, the standards that we've inherited are very, very poor, and we need to improve that dramatically. So there will be significant investment in schools across the county, and we'll make those plans clear when we come to the budget.
Okay. Anybody else? Can we pass this? Great, thank you. 11, report of the monitoring officer. Who's doing this? Is Councillor Oliver again?
Yeah, so the recommendations of this are to note the position thus far of the appointment process relating to the vacancies for the 3 parish council representatives on Council Standards Committee. 2, to agree to appoint the following parish councillors to the 3 vacancies on the Council Standards Committee. They are Councillor Bryn Owen of Craster Parish Council, Councillor Andrew Tebbett of Morpeth Town Council, and Councillor Alex Wallace of East Bedlington Parish Council. And in doing so, to agree to amend the Council's constitution to remove the requirements for an area-based appointment in respect of these appointments, and to express the Council's gratitude to the recently retired former incumbents of these positions for their contributions to the work of the Standards Committee over the last number of years, and to agree to amend the Council's constitution to remove from the Council's Standards Committee the responsibility for granting dispensations to parish and town council members from requirements relating to disclosable pecuniary interests.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, Chair. Chair, I'd like to second this. Although one of the councillors is an active Liberal, I agree wholeheartedly with this report, and the 3 people who have done the work previously have done it absolutely marvellously, and they've put a lot of effort in. I'd like to thank them very, very much indeed.
I think there's one at the back. Former Councillor Rawlings. Councillor Roughhead.
Thanks, Chair. I fully support this report and recommendation.
Wait for the mic. I would hate to miss it.
Thanks. Sorry, members. So I fully agree with this report and welcome it. But on number 3, to agree to amend the Council's constitution to remove the requirement for an area-based appointment in respect of these appointed, I would propose an amendment so it would read as the following: to agree to amend the Council's constitution to change the requirement for an area-based appointment to desirable but not essential in respect... No, to desirable but not essential criteria in respect for these and future appointments.
I'm happy to second that amendment. I think it's quite important to try and have a spread right across the county, and I think that's quite a sensible amendment.
So that's seconded. Anybody want to speak against that, or is everybody happy with that minor amendment? Okay, are we happy with the body? Councillor Reid?
Chair, kind of prompted by one of the previous speakers, Andrew Tebbett is a personal friend of mine. Do I need to declare an interest on that, or...?
Is he a personal friend? Are you likely to favour or disfavour him because of that friendship in this appointment, Councillor?
No. That's all right.
Nice to know you've got some friends.
Yeah, always rely on them.
Yeah. So are we happy with this report? Yes. Thank you. 12, report of the Head of Planning Services, proposed changes to the Strategic Planning Committee, terms of references and power. Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, when we formed area planning committees, we obviously changed some of the terms of reference. This was probably one that was omitted at the time, didn't come on our radar at the time. It's, in my mind, a minor change, but an important change. In particular, it allows the ability for the proposals of corporate strategic significance to be determined by the county-wide committee rather than by local area committees. So really, it's all in the report there. There's very little more that needs to be said, unless you have questions.
Councillor Davey.
No questions, Chair. I have an objection to this. The planning applications linked to the council's statutory duties marked in bold, or some of those have been coming to the local area planning committees, and they should still remain with the local area planning committees. A lot of this is about delegation, and these items should not be delegated. We as a council, whatever we do, is covered by legislation. So it doesn't matter what planning application it goes through, the council is covered by legislation on that planning application of some sort or another. And if it's its own planning application, it's covered by planning law and legislation. Otherwise it wouldn't be doing it, and it can't do it. So what we've got here today is that if it's a council issue, it can be virtually nodded through by the head of planning unless you know 21 days before, you complain 21 days before after the application's been put in. Now when it comes to the council putting an application in, unless you actually live on the doorstep, and we've had a recent occasion where one councillor lived 100 metres from the site of something that was going on and was not told about it, and had to make several phone calls to find out about this application, and it would have never been even discussed if it hadn't been on a local area committee. Now the local area councils or committees should still retain items of local need. So items of local need, in this case, the building that no one knew about the planning was a nursery school. It was rejected because of some of the worst parking arrangements you've ever seen in your life, and the danger to the children coming to this nursery school would have been untold. In Councillor Reid's ward, and I'm going to help him here and name him, another nursery school's been about to be built. He'll not even know when the application goes in unless he's actually told by the people who apply for it on the council. The school that is going to be built in his ward, the traffic is so bad that he gets complaints almost daily, and that is the truth, and he will admit that whether we're arguing on other matters or not. So these things need to come to the local areas, because the local people need to have the opportunity to discuss them, to debate them, and to either agree or disagree with them. So I wholeheartedly disagree with this item here that needs to be reversed, and items of local interest need to be retained by the local area planning committees.
Councillor Riddle.
Yeah. Councillor Davey is correct in highlighting the point that brought this to committee, back to me to be reconsidered. But what I'm going to say is that application which you referred to, which was refused against officer recommendations, against the advice of the highway officer, if it goes to appeal, it's likely to be lost. But that's whatever happens. But that is not that particular scheme. I hope that planning application will be referred, I hope, back to you at Area Committee for reconsideration. But what I will say is that this is about the future. It's not about that particular application. And I think it is important that things of strategic importance are decided. They should go to the Strategic Planning Committee. They can be advertised. Anybody can look on the web and see anything that's there. There's nothing being hidden here. We did change the terms of reference when we moved to area planning committees, and I'm pleased that you've acknowledged that they do bring local representation. But one thing that I wanted to put in, which was put in, was that developments involving 100 houses or more than 1,000 square metres of commercial floor space, that was something that we put in that you agreed to change the last time. So, it's not unusual that I'm asking you to change them, but I do believe that they are for sound reasons, not to hide anything and not to railroad anything.
Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of confusion there, because I don't know about other members here, but I get an email about every application that happens in my ward, whether it goes to strategic planning or to local planning. So to say that members aren't being informed about planning applications happening in their area, I'm very concerned if other members aren't getting that email. So I think that something needs to be looked at if that's not happening, because certainly as far as I was aware, that all applications in my ward I was being informed about, and if that's not the case and matters that go strategic aren't being emailed to members, that's something that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson at the back. Just pass it over.
Thanks, Chair. I'm that councillor that wasn't informed, by the way. I do get emails on my phone about other plan applications, but this one didn't come to me. As I said, I live 100 yards, but I had a plan meeting there. 100 yards from my house, and I was never informed. I was informed a few days later from a member of the public, and I was lost. What the heck are you talking about? There's been nothing at my door, nothing in the paper, nothing anywhere. I phoned a number of people at County Hall, Mark, Julie, and a few others, even the head teachers at the schools around, and they hadn't a clue what I was talking about. I went back to the people who sent us an email, and I stood and talked, oh, they were here, man. But the lady that's started this plan application, it's gone now. And I thought, well, that's nice, they've started something and they've gone away. Now, this is not on. Local people wants to know what's going on in the area. If we're hiding something, we can't be hiding to people. They won't go at us. We can't go there and say, we're going to hide this from you, we're going to hide that from you. We can't. The school, the people is over the moon the school's coming. But it's the planning of the car parking facilities. There's none. None. And if we stop it here now and get it sorted, the next school can move on. But we can't move on like this, mind. I'm going back tonight and speak to these people. And I've got, oh, God knows what I'm going to get me here, bro. But it's totally wrong what was going on. Simple as that.
Can people be careful that this is still a planning application? So we're not talking about this planning application. I've got a number of people. I want to go to Councillor Towns. Then Dale, Dickinson, Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. It might be a case to spot the lawyer in the House, but I've got a couple of concerns over the wording in the general terms of reference. First off, we've got planning applications involving more than 100 houses and more than 1,000 square feet, sorry, 1,000 square metres of commercial floor space. But then we're talking about planning applications involving less than 100 houses and less than 1,000 square metres. So what if there's an application for 100 houses or an application for 1,000 square metres? So that there's a point of clarity on that. Also a point of pedantry is we've got involving less than 100 houses. Could we change that to a fewer than 100 houses? Thank you, Chair.
I'm told it's at the officer's